week of Linux Reviewed. As you guys can see, the screencast has changed a little bit, as there should now be in your bottom screen video of me. I have found a different screen capturing tool that I have found to be, I don't know, like considerably better. Maybe not in terms of function and feature, but in terms of what it can do. The box, and I think I'll show that off here in a minute. Being with some of the changes with this kind of change, I think this is a good week to get started, to start adding more to the show. Nothing too much. I'm not wanting to build like 45-minute, hour-long shows, but definitely bring in some things so that way my screencast doesn't turn into like all these other people who just like week after week, or sometimes 2-3 times a week, are building these Linux reviews and nothing more. Eventually, you notice people kind of get bored with them. They kind of start to run down hills. They run out of desktops. And I'd like to start adding things like, say, app pick, and potentially at the end, a debatable subject, and see what you guys think, and feedback. Because Linux is a constant evolving beast. So, for those reasons, very often we notice, large changes year after year, things that aren't the same as what they were, and it'd be good to, I think, do those. So first things first, I guess we should maybe look at the app pick, and I think biggest what I'm going to show off, of course, is this new screen capturing tool. I found it completely by accident, and we'll open it up here, and it's called Screen Studio. I was looking for something that would maybe have more features. I was using Simple Screen Recorder in the past, and Simple Screen Recorder is pretty good. But this here it doesn't have all the same features as, say, Simple Screen Recorder does, but I can have a video of me running at the bottom, and I know that I could have done that with FFmpeg, but the reality is when you start having too many things streaming at one time, there could be audio conflicts, be all sorts of issues. I was kind of looking for one tool that would do it all, because it'd be a more seamless experience. The biggest feature I want to point out, though, because I've been seeing a lot of questions of this on the forums. So we know that recently Valve, with the Steam client, has been allowing video stream with their system. I haven't checked to see if it supports Linux or not, but I've been seeing a lot of people ask about streaming with Twitch. And the answer has always been, nope, sorry. I actually saw one guy post, go get an OS that isn't developed in a garage, and yeah, you'll have that functionality. Well, the cool part about Screen Studio is if you go to the stream part, you can set it up to work with Twitch TV. Now, I will tell you, I've not tested this feature, so I do not know if it works. But if you guys are into doing that kind of stuff, the live streams, let me know. I seriously would love to know how that's working out. So let's move on to the desktop pick review of this week. And as promised, we're going to be looking at Peppermint OS. So Peppermint OS, for quite a few years I've heard about them. They're not like New Kids on the Block. Essentially, they build the how do I put it? It's not like it's like Chrome OS, but it's not. I mean, it still has all of the great Linux underpinning, but the goal's the same. Because it is based on Ubuntu 14.04. So, the real question is, well, why would I use this over Ubuntu? And the reason is because of their integration with web applications. And I'm going to show it off. It's kind of cool, one of the tools that they build. But to kind of understand, is this a community? Is this a company? What are they doing? Well, you have what's called Peppermint Media. So Peppermint Media, it strikes me a lot as kind of like, Linux Deepin. These guys, they do a lot. I mean, they do offer things like professional photography, on-site photo sessions, product photography, indoor-outdoor image processing. But if you also notice, custom web design, social media integration, front and back end development, customer service systems, IT business consulting, cloud hosting and storage, content management systems, website hosting. So essentially, right, these guys are, yet again, they built an OS that you can see is not actually tied to their main company, but they could technically make it an offering. So someone could, maybe sit down and say, hey, we're a major company, we're using, we want to use all web applications. And then, they could sit down and make another feasible argument. Well, we have this great tool that integrates web applications into this Linux operating system that will work for your needs. And then you won't have to pay for the licensing of Windows. I mean, I work in an enterprise IT environment, and it'd be kind of cool to get rid of the volume licensing. Really, really would be. So there's definitely some benefit there. And these guys are kind of starting off the same way. I mean, it's based on Ubuntu, I get that. But the relationship that Canonical had with Ubuntu, you used to go to the Ubuntu website, and it was all about the Ubuntu desktop. And then you had the Canonical website, which was all about the enterprise environment and their relationships with manufacturers and things like that. They're kind of doing the same thing. They have Peppermint Media using the same logo, but they have Peppermint Media that handles all this web stuff and imagery and all this other stuff, and then they have their distribution site, which handles their OS. So, kind of cool. I think that's pretty awesome. Okay, so let's head over here into the main desktop. Now, I will tell you, yet again, unfortunately, typed that in wrong. It's not rendering at a very high, it's like less than 720p, and I don't understand why. I've always had kind of problems with LXDE. I really have when it comes to rendering correctly. But I even have 3D acceleration turned on. I'm giving it more than enough video memory. But either way, we'll still be able to render and do a proper review. So this is Peppermint. Like I said, it is basic. It is just Ubuntu, right? So it is Ubuntu with the LXD desktop with some theming. We can go in here. It's and that's one thing. I mean, I kind of get why they went with LXDE. We get, say, some Windows users over here. They'll feel very comfortable, especially if you've ever used, say, like Windows 2000. They do include some core applications. You'll start to see, like Pixlr, for example, is a web-based application. They are keeping it relatively light. Okay, Chromium web browser, Dropbox, Office. You have Document Viewer, Gmail, Google Calendar, Google Drive, Sound Video. You have a media player, which I'm kind of interested in seeing what the media player item is. Okay, oh, it's just GNOME M Player. Very interesting selection. I don't really see a lot of people going with that one anymore. I guess I've heard it's really light. The software manager here is nothing more than the Linux Mint software manager. It's not bad. I think it's in a sense, if you're trying to not be labeled so closely with Ubuntu, it's a pretty good option to use. And trying to keep it light as well, because like the GNOME software store is light years ahead of anyone else right now, but this keeps it pretty light. It organizes relatively well, and it looks really sharp. Now we're going to keep this open because there's something I want to show you guys here in a bit. Here's YouTube, but I'm going to close out of that for the point. So what makes this distribution unique or different is a program they build called ICE. So what ICE is a piece of software that allows you to build and manage web applications, right? So let's do a really good example here. Let's go with, say, www.facebook.com, or I'm sorry, that's the application name. So we'll just call it Facebook, and we type in the web address. Where do we want the menu? We'll keep it in the internet, but as you can see, you can put this application wherever, right? So, but we'll leave it in the internet, and we want to use this USite favicon. So you could technically get one from Google Images and use one from there, or you could just click here and give it a second, wait for the magic to happen, and there we go. Boom, loads up right here, Facebook icon. Click apply, click close. Now if I go here and I go to the internet, look, I have Facebook. And it opens it up in its own dedicated, and like I said, I'm sure If I was running this natively and was able to get full rendering, it would open up correctly, like regular, so I'm not having to have to scroll back and forth. But it opens up as its own dedicated application. So if I come over here and I go over to graphics and go editor by pixeler, right? Yet again, as you see, opens up as separate applications. Okay? I mean, this is kind of cool. I think, if anyone remembers when the Chromebook first came out, 2009, all it was basically how do I put it? A web browser. That's all it was. I mean, I know some people say, well, that's all it is today. But, today at least has a traditional looking desktop. It literally, when you booted up a Chromebook back when they first came out, and I think it was 2009 or 2010, you just literally the Chrome browser opened, nothing else. This here is kind of cool because it does a lot like what Chrome OS does. The only difference is after having a Chromebook, and I don't know if an update's changed it, but still applications open up in tabs, whereas this gives it more of a software feel. Okay, and we can see how this would really integrate very nicely with their company. So, I mean, it's really awesome. The other big thing I want to point out is you may notice that it has a Chrome option. It has a Chrome option. So if I install Google Chrome, I can use Chrome instead of Chromium. Now, some of you may sit down and go, well, that's a no-go. That's not any real good right there, Devin, because that's proprietary code. Okay, I get it, but if you're running Chromium, you better not be running the Flash plugin, because that's proprietary code. You can't pull one apple from the forbidden tree, but then say it's bad to eat the rest. At the end of the day, if you're going to use a little bit of proprietary, a little bit more is not going to kill you. So I'll get to why I think Chrome is kind of a better option than Chromium here in just a second. So, I mean, it's really cool. You can go in here, we can go in, and we can remove. So example being, I have no interest in playing this game, let's remove it. So it almost like, in a sense, right, so if we sit down and say that, here, the software manager, because the software manager isn't really all that fantastic, right? It's like I go in graphics, right? So we'll click on that. I mean, it gives me Blender. It gives me a couple, it gives me some packages. But overall, like and we've seen this like, how do I put it? We've seen this on other shows, or at least I have, where if you really scroll through here as an end user, you'd be like, well, that doesn't really belong. Like photography, image viewer, and browser. As an end user, if I was to click on photography, I would think, right, if I've never been to Links before, I would be presented with like really high-end photo software, right? And this isn't a bad thing. Like, I'm not even taking points off of this. But what I'm saying is, like, historically, Linux distributions have always been kind of in with our app stores. I mean, I would like to point out that Linux was using desktop app stores before anybody else. But, I mean, this here is really cool. You can say, where I would see this being a huge plus for is maybe I've got a parent or a friend who's not very computer savvy. They do all of their stuff on their PC, and you notice that there's a web application for everything they do. This would be amazing for someone like that. Almost knocked the mic off. It would be amazing for someone of that type of structure there. I mean, really, when you think about it, web applications have really bridged the gap between that Linux has typically had in the past, again, with Windows, right? Windows has always had more software that people know about. Well, this really does help it, because web applications, guys, I mean, quite frankly, there's almost a web application for everything these days, and a lot of people rely on them. Now, of course, as always, there's the bads, right? There's always the bads. So, first off, each to their own with LXD. I'm not going to take points off for that, but if you are trying to build something different, give me something elegant. Don't give me LXDE. LXDE is definitely, it's not, I mean, this is one of the best presentations of LXDE, but it's definitely not wouldn't be my desktop of choice. If I was shipping a distribution, I would not ship LXDE. I may offer LXDE for those who have older machines, but I think honestly, Cinnamon would be a much better fit to be modern and just customize that menu out to be easier to use. Now, we're going to get to here. We're going to open up ICE. I'm going to show you this. So let's do YouTube. Okay. This was a relatively, so we'll use the favicon. YouTube was kind of, this brings up a huge problem that I had when testing the distribution out. So I'll say, okay, apply it, and click close. We'll come over here, we'll go to internet, and we'll open up YouTube. Okay, so here we go. YouTube loads up. Everything's looking good, right? Everything's looking right in the world. I'm not. Here, we'll click on the Will Ferrell and this. Boom. Oh, snap. Now, I mean, I'll give it to Google. I love these little things here. It means they have an actual sense of humor, and so does their management, because, anyway. So it's like, okay, not a big deal, not a big deal. This is Linux. They may be those big open source kind of people. So let me just go grab the Pepper plugin, right? That's what you're all thinking. So we'll go back to categories. We'll come in here. We'll type in Pepper, and we'll see if it. And look, it's already plugged in. So essentially, the Flash plugin for Chromium is broken. Now, let's do a little test, and I haven't tested this yet, so I actually don't know the outcome. Let's remove it and then reinstall it. So you guys know in Ubuntu, or Ubuntu-based distributions, that when you go through the installer and you clicked, yes, install third-party proprietary plugins, that it actually should technically install the Flash plugin for Mozilla Firefox. What I believe they did was they went in and removed those lines out of the script and then had put in to have the Pepper Flash plugin. So theoretically, right, it's very possible that by reinstalling the Flash plugin, closing out of this right here, that it might work. Because the Flash plugin, the Pepper Flash plugin, I know for a fact works with Chromium in Ubuntu 14.04. And this is based on Ubuntu 14.04, so hypothetically it should work, okay? Now, the question is, well, what if it doesn't? Well, the beautiful thing is, like I said, if you're using Flash, you're using proprietary. Just go get yourself Chrome. If it doesn't work, go get Chrome. But the reason why I bring this up and why it's bothering me is the simple fact that, I mean, like, come on, really? I mean, this is almost as bad as when Luna first came out from Elementary OS. It came out, it was using the Midori web browser. And typically, Midori web browser in any other distribution that that has the Adobe Flash plugin works. Like Midori will use that Flash plugin. But it wouldn't work in Elementary OS's Luna. It wouldn't work. There was some really nice guys who posted some scripts which would fix the problem. And, well, it is virtualized. We'll see, maybe taking a minute here. So, I mean, honestly, guys, like, if this is your thing, this is your gig here, and you're already using some proprietary code, I mean, like, what else is proprietary in Google Chrome? The PDF viewer is, there's a couple other things, but a majority of Google Chrome saying you don't go out and get a boatload of extensions is relatively open source. If you even say here, I open up Chrome right now, and I go here and I go about Google Chrome. Google Chrome is made possible by the Chromium Open Source Project and other open source software. I mean, like, legitimately, you're not committing any more sin here, okay? All right. I might have froze. We're not going to sit here and wait to find out. But overall, like I said, I mean, that's kind of a big deal to me. Your business is running web applications. And guys, I know you may hear many other people say, the death of Flash is upon us. It's not. Flash is very much here to stay for several more years. I'm not saying it eventually won't go away, but I mean, like, come on, Flash in Chrome is allowing us to watch Netflix now. Just saying, it's not going anywhere for a while. If no more companies started adopting Flash, then I could say, yes, Flash is dying. But as more and more companies continue to use the Flash plugin, you can't even come close to saying it's dead. So overall, that's a pretty big hit. Like I said, you can easily, you could probably go online and find out what's causing the problem and fix it. The only issue with that is that could take you 5 minutes. That could take you a week. You may never even get an answer for it. So if you're going to build a product, you're going to ship a product, the main key component of that product better frickin' work. Okay? The only other real complaints I have is you're shipping Dropbox, which, I mean, that's fine. Dropbox is I'd rather see Dropbox than OwnCloud. Love OwnCloud, but most new users to Linux would know that OwnCloud requires you to have it set up on a server. So Dropbox is a pretty good option. The one thing I think I did find odd was the Google Drive. Now, for those of you who don't know, Google Docs is no longer Google Docs. I mean, it's still Google Docs, but it is now integrated into Google Drive. Before, you used to have Google Drive, and then you could actually had a separate Google Docs site. The problem is most end users are going to think of Google Drive as a cloud storage, not as a place for them to go build documents. However, for those who can figure it out, I will applaud them because honestly, as a college student, okay, currently work full-time and I'm pursuing a bachelor's in IT security, my papers render more accurately on my professor's end under Microsoft Office when I use Google Docs over LibreOffice. The downside to all of this here, what if I don't use Gmail? What if I'm a Outlook kind of guy using Office 365 online? What if I'm a complete whacked out open source guy and I'm using DuckDuckGo paired with some off the wall Norwegian email company? So I think shipping the Google stuff, it's not necessarily horrible, but you're almost putting too much branding into your distribution. You're not leaving it. I'm not one to sit down and say, oh, I hate Google or I hate proprietary. You guys should know that about me at this point. But honestly, I wouldn't ship this much Google in my distribution if I shipped it. And like I said, I would definitely make sure that my ICE application can render the site. I will tell you there are some other apps that I played with ICE. As far as I could tell, it had no issue rendering sites. I even went as far as to build an Angry Birds web application using ICE, and it worked flawlessly, perfectly. It looked like a dedicated Angry Birds app for my computer. So that was pretty amazing. So I guess at the end of the day, the real question is, where do I stand and how do I feel about, I guess my battery's discharging. Thank you. I guess the real question is, where do I stand? Where do I feel about Peppermint? I honestly, you know what, 7 out of 10. And the reason why, there's great presentation here. It's easy to use. That ICE application is fantastic. I mean, seriously, I'm half tempted to put the PPA on my system and roll with it on Ubuntu because there are some applications where I'm like, dude, the web app works. I like it. Let's do it. Where I'm having the problem is the fact that if you don't include Pepper, cool. The Pepper Flash plugin for Chromium so they could have Flash, cool. It doesn't work. Get it. But when you include it as a installed application and it does not work, new users to Linux are going to come over. They're going to try and go to build a YouTube app. They're going to go and try and build some Flash game type of app, and it's not going to fricking work. Piss poor job. And for that whole reason, I was like, no, I'm no good. No good. You're going to lose 3 points automatically just for that. Like I said, if you want to be a true open source company, sweet. Don't ship Flash. I won't blame you for it. But when you're going to ship a proprietary product, you better make sure the integration is flawless. All right, so let's close out of it. Like I said, and one thing I will, though, also give props for, there's 100% consistency through the entire thing. I mean, the consistency was absolutely beautiful and fantastic. Now, time to get to the debatable subject. Oh, well, before we get there, I want to show you. So, if you are interested in ice, but you're like, dude, I don't want to use Peppermint, type in Peppermint OS PPA. It'll take you to the Peppermint OS team. You can come over here. You can get the latest version of ice, which is 5.0.1, right? And if we take it across, we'll notice Kendall. Now, if you're like, okay, but I know there's some people who are anti-PPAs because they're like, you don't know who's packaging it. It could be malicious, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let me show you. I think it's just under the About section, and it talks about it. Kendall, hey, buddy. So basically, it is the official Peppermint OS team who is packaging these things in the PPA. So you don't really have much to worry about. So if you are wanting to use ICE, and I may in a later review talk about my experience with ICE and Ubuntu, because you never know. I am running Chrome, but I might throw Chromium on there, build some apps with Pepper, and see if it actually works better. Because, like I said, in my experience with the Adobe Flash plugin for Firefox and Midori worked flawlessly in Ubuntu. I mean, I just installed Midori, and I didn't even have to tell it to pull Flash. It automatically knew to do it. But I had to run a script in Elementary OS to get it done, to get it working. So, the debatable subject this week, we can close out of all these, is Fedora. I'm not going to review Fedora. I don't want to review the big desktops. You guys can find your own reviews. I'm sure there's right now some guy making a video of sitting his mother down in front of a screen and showing her on Fedora, as if we care that she knows how. She has sat down in front of enough Linux distributions. She knows how to use it, I'm sure. What I'm talking about is, I don't know if you guys have noticed with this release Fedora, if you've ever followed Fedora. I've been following Fedora for a long time because I'm actually a big Red Hat fan. The reason why I don't run Fedora is because, in my general experience, Ubuntu is a lot more rock solid, and there's a lot more software being built specifically for Ubuntu. It may run on Fedora, but there's always the chance that with the next version of Fedora, it may not. But if you ever went to Fedora in the past, it was like this mess, this horrible mess. They have completely revamped the website. It is no longer fedoraproject.org. It is now getfedora.org. Okay? Freedom, friends, features first. Right? I mean, very clear. Still Red Hat. Okay? They now offer free versions. In the past, I've heard of people running Fedora as a server. And I think you're crazy, by the way, if you do. Like, hello, enterprise environment. Let's throw some LTS up on there, or I don't know if CentOS considers itself LTS, but it's like support for like 7 to 10 years. So that's typically how I run my servers. But anyway, you can come in here, you can grab the workstation, and I mean, look at how clean. Like, I'm jealous as an Ubuntu user, right? This is one of the best freaking Linux/open source websites I have ever seen in my life. It is so freaking clean. I mean, look at this. This is gorgeous, right? I mean, and consistent. Now, cloud, I'm still trying to figure out this cloud piece because, like, Ubuntu server can do both enterprise task and cloud, so I don't know why they're really separating it out that much. So the question is, what is the subject we're discussing here? Have you guys tried Fedora? What do you guys think of Fedora? I've been trying Fedora 21, the workstation. I've been messing around with it a little bit. It's incredibly impressive. I mean, just fantastically impressive. It makes me kind of start to wonder what Red Hat is now doing with Fedora. So I'd like to hear your guys' comments and over that. And I will most definitely next week when we do the show, I will tell you where I stand. I don't really want to post where I'm going yet on it because I like to hear what you guys say. But I've had a theory now for the last 2 releases of Fedora on where they're going and what they're trying to do and how they're doing it silently. Because they're not trying to make a big noise over it. They're trying to do something and it's going to sneak up and hit very quickly, I think. So we'll go over that. Next week, I think we're going to skip an OS review, and we're going to do a desktop review. I have to relook at the name. I'm not going to lie to you guys, I don't know it. And furthermore, I don't know if I want to tell you, so it'd be kind of like a surprise. But there's a new desktop in town, one that you guys may have heard of if you've been keeping up with the news on it. But I'll tell you right now, it's not GNOME, it's not KDE, it's not Unity, it's not Mate, it's not Cinnamon, it's not LXD, it's not LXQT. It's really not. It is a whole different thing. And I'm actually going to show you how this desktop would be really interesting, especially if I can pull it off, in Peppermint OS. So I'm going to be leaving the Peppermint OS virtual. I usually delete the virtual pretty shortly after the videos. We're going to integrate this desktop into Peppermint, and we're going to make something pretty wicked. And we're going to be doing that on the next week's show. And I know it's like, well, dude, see, look, you're changing some things up. But the reality is I'm not. But I want to show off this desktop because at the end of the day, if you're one of those who is supporting an end user out there who wanted something other than Windows because maybe they couldn't afford the upgrade from XP, their Windows 7 system crashed and they're done with it, but they're like end user status that even like something like Ubuntu would throw them off, we're going to look at some solutions there. So everybody, thank you for watching. I will probably either tonight or tomorrow night, tomorrow night for me will be Sunday, be posting a video. I'm going to be responding to a YouTuber who posted a video that highly upset me. And I typically don't like talking about other people who post videos on YouTube because I think it's annoying. But this person really annoyed me and it irked me in the wrong way. So it won't be a part of this show. It'll be completely separate and unbranded. All right, everybody, thank you and have a great night.